Right, good afternoon everybody and welcome to this meeting of the Audit Committee. It is 4:30, so I will start on time. I'm conscious that Councillor Dupre rang to say she would probably be late because she's at a County Council meeting. But 4:30 is our start time, so we'll welcome her when she arrives. Talking about welcoming, I would particularly like to welcome those members of the public and press who may be watching the live stream. As with all technology, there's always the possibility of something going wrong. If anything should go wrong with the live stream, I will adjourn the meeting until the issue has been resolved. If we are unable to resolve the issue, it may be necessary to continue the rest of the meeting without a live stream. Brings us on to agenda item number 1, public question time. Patrick? No public questions. Item 2, apologies and substitutions. Patrick Adams.
Yes, we've got apologies, Chair, from two members, Councillor James Lay and Councillor Ross Trent. Councillor Gareth Wilson is substituting for Councillor Ross Trent.
Thank you. As already mentioned, we've had a sort of an apology for lateness from Councillor Dupre. Welcome, Councillor Wilson. Item 3 is declarations of interest. Does any member have any interests to declare for any items on the agenda? No. And that brings us on to item 4, the minutes. To confirm as a correct record the minutes of the meeting of the Audit Committee held on the 15th of July. Can I have a proposer and seconder to approve the minutes? Thank you, Councillor Horgan, and I'm happy to second from the Chair, since neither Councillors Wilson or Stephen.
Chair, there are a couple of items noted in the minutes of things that I was expecting to see by now. One was a briefing note about the trading company and details of the security of the loan, and the second thing was a review of risk management. Perhaps if officers could comment on when we might receive those things, that would be appreciated.
Jude?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I have received some update from the finance manager of the trading company, which I would like to share with the members. I'm happy to share following this meeting, or I can include in the next committee agenda for the performance update of this East Cambridge Trading Company. On the risk management update, we had the meeting on the 9th of October, so we were not able to produce an updated report prior to this agenda going to publish. So again, I will be able to give that following this meeting.
Thank you, Jude. Is it our wish that rather than wait till the next meeting, those are sent out as soon as they're ready? Yes, sir. Yep, okay. Thank you. Send it to all members, please, Jude. Thank you. I'll sign the minutes at the end of the meeting. Item 5 is Chairman's announcements. I have one announcement today, and that is I would like to welcome Jude Anthony, our recently appointed new Section 151 officer and Finance Director, to his first meeting of the Audit Committee, although he's already beaten me in with by making that previous announcement on the minutes. So welcome, Jude.
Thank you, Chair.
Item 6 is the Annual Governance Statement 2024-25 final draft. Can I ask John Hill, Chief Executive, to introduce this item?
Thank you, Chair. You'll be pleased to know at the final stage of the process, Chair and members, can I thank those members who made representations, comments and amendments, particularly Councillor Vellicott, Councillor Horgan, Stephen, Joyce, LA member. I hope those members feel that we've reflected those comments, and they are listed, the changes to the governance statement in Appendix 1 in italics, and we've also detailed each of the comments where applicable and where we've actually made those amendments. So hopefully that's a useful cross-reference. So I think, Chairman, really all I need to do now is to recommend the final draft for signature, having gone through the consultation process. Thank you.
Thank you, John. From the Chair, I'm happy to propose the recommendation as set out in 2.1 of the report. Do I have a seconder?
Chair, second the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ellicott. Members, any further comments or questions to John? Councillor Horgan?
Yes, thank you. Just an observation.
Yep.
I'm looking on pages 21 and 24. That's the sort of the big page numbers. Where it actually has the word page in front of it. And the bottom of page 21 is the 24-25 development. Almost identical wording repeated on 21 and 24, and appreciate that they are slightly different, but they're both under the same principle. I'm not overly fussed that it's repeated, but I was just wanted to check that that both entries assisted the reader.
I think it's not a mistake in that it's not a
Sorry, could you put your microphone on, please, John?
duplicated. So I think it does reflect those. If members wish, I can review that, and if I need to make any changes, go through you, Chair. But it's probably something I can look at again. We have spent a considerable amount of time, but you can sometimes miss those things. And thanks for pointing it out, Councillor Organ. I think we need a mechanism for me to change that, if you'd allow me in consultation with the Chair after I've reviewed it, if that needs.
Members, is that okay with everybody?
Yeah, it was an observation.
I'm
And
very
I was
happy
just
to.
checking that it was a deliberate action.
Well, we want this document to be improved year on year, and I think we've achieved that. So I don't want to miss the opportunity to make those changes. Thank you.
Councillor Wilson?
Extremely minor amendment. Page 27, the very last word has got too many O's.
Oh yes, thank you.
Well spotted, Councillor.
Well done.
Councillor Horgan?
Yes, we were talking about this briefly.
Councillor Wilson, could you turn your mic?
Yeah, we were just talking about this briefly. It's not often the Audit Committee makes a recommendation, but with the Chair's agreement, I have an idea about the possibility of making a recommendation to the Operational Services Committee based on the comments in the annual governance. We're going to jump about very, very slightly, but very quickly. So if you look on page 9, back in the minutes, item 10, paragraph 2, you'll see that there was an overdue action in relation to housing allocation that was highlighted in the last meeting, and homelessness. And then what's happened is that the housing register has been brought in-house. So I was wondering if we felt it would be useful just to make a recommendation to the Operational Services Committee to do a review in view of that change of ownership of the housing register and the fact that there was an overdue action previously in the same area of housing and homelessness. Because obviously how you manage the housing register can have a direct impact on homelessness. So it was just a thought, a question, and I'm interested to see if people think that that would be a useful way of actually just making sure that the right governance is taking place.
I wonder whether we ought to just be asking the question, or make a recommendation, if they are not already, if it's not already on their work programme to review the change of ownership, they might consider it.
Something like that.
Any views, John?
I'm trying to help. I think if you're going to make a recommendation, and I think you've got, and we've done this before, where Audit Committee requested a policy committee to undertake a review, it needs to reflect the item that you're making that proposition as part of. Does Councillor Organ have a cross-reference to the governance statement, which would help me in feeling that this is an appropriate amendment?
It is on Appendix 1, Principle D, 4th bullet point.
Page?
Page number.
Page 29. Apologies, yes.
Yeah, thank
I have it written down.
I don't see, obviously it's whether the committee want to include that, but I think you could add it onto this particular report. Obviously, it shouldn't affect the approval of the annual governance statement.
No.
And you can either do that through some sort of formal proposition, or, you know, we can request the lead director to pursue that matter with the committee chair, because it may be that it's in their work programme anyway.
Exactly, and
Yeah.
this debate will be in the minutes, so it will be recorded.
So can I take that away, Chair,
Yeah.
and I'll discuss it with my director colleague who'll raise it directly with the chair of that particular committee. And I'm sure when your next meeting, Jude, or the appropriate director can come back with an update.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's probably the cleanest way, I think, Chair.
Perfect, thank you.
Councillor Vellicott?
Yes, thank you. Just briefly, I think on the Operational Services Committee, we are at some stage due to receive a housing report that will be a general report for the entire service. Very happy, so we don't have to put a formal amendment to this as such, but if Chief Executive is to go away and discuss with Chair of Op Services and Director of Operations, just to ensure that that report does include a review of the service being moved in-house, I imagine it would anyway, but I think it doesn't hurt to ensure that.
Thank you. Stephen?
A comment and a question. Firstly, thank you. I'm happy that the comments I submitted have been properly amended for where appropriate. And my question is, as you said, there's a lot of work goes into this. What happens to this document now, and how is it used? And is that worth the effort that goes into it?
Obviously, in formal terms, it goes in front of myself and the leader for signature. And obviously, it's a key part of the governance regime of the authority, and certainly I would expect colleagues are regularly reviewing it, because you'll see from the actions we're able to receive updates. I don't know whether Jude wants to add anything, but for me it's one of the key documents of my work, and management team oversee that.
Yeah, we will continue to monitor this and see if there are anything we can amend on that. That's what we will do there. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, anything further on this one? All in favour of the recommendation? Thank you. It's unanimous, Patrick.
And with that review of that particular section in consultation,
Yeah.
I'm sure Patrick can put together some words for me. Thank you.
Right, thank you, John. We now move on to agenda item 7, which is external audit plan for 2024-25. And to welcome Anastasia and Jacob from our external auditors, EY. Anastasia, I understand you're going to give us an oral update. Over to you.
David sends his apologies. He would have liked to be here, but had a prior engagement with another client. David has asked me to present the following to the committee. This item is to update the committee on the delivery of 24-25 external audit plan presented to the July committee. The audit is now entering the conclusion stage. David will present the audit results report and walk the committee through the detailed findings in the February committee. There are no changes to the audit risks presented to the July committee. The audit was due to start in August, but we agreed with officers the council was not fully audit ready due to the availability of supporting records, and we agreed to defer the start date by 1 month. The high-level summaries: we have identified weaknesses in the council's arrangements to prepare draft financial statements and adequate supporting records. This has led to a high number of audit adjustments covering the primary statements and disclosure notes for the areas of the accounts where we have been able to complete planned procedures. There are areas of accounts where we have been unable to complete planned procedures due to the adequacy of supporting records. This will not change the audit opinion for 24-25 as presented in the audit plan to the July committee that is disclaimed, but it will add to the volume of work required to rebuild assurance in future years. The audit results report will set out the detailed findings, recommendations for improvement, and set out the Council's trajectory to return to a clean audit report. I'm happy to open for questions, but may need to take this back to David to respond. David can meet separately with the committee chair, members, if it would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Anastasia. Members, any comments or questions for external audit? Councillor Horgan?
Yes, obviously, I'm interested to dig a little deeper into these, I think 5 areas of weakness that you mentioned. Was that the right number, 5? Well, sorry, I thought I heard the word 5, but if not, areas of weakness, number unspecified. Obviously want to understand a little more about them, and particularly about what recommendations are being made to our Section 151 officer, such that we can obviously make sure that they have negligible impact on our assurance going forward.
So I can take that to start, and then Anastasia, if you want to come in with some reflections. Just as a brief introduction, so I'm here kind of standing in for David. I was part of the external audit team about 3 or so years ago, so familiar with this committee, if not the faces that now sit within it. In terms of the question around weaknesses, so the weaknesses we've raised, I think it probably does reflect some of the turnover that the finance team have experienced over the last year or so, in terms of having the right support to prepare those draft financial statements at an audit quality standard. And I think it's important that we reflect that audit quality standard is going up, and where we're talking about kind of backstop dates and the audit has to be complete by February. That means the working papers and supporting records that finance teams provide need to be of the highest quality to allow us to do that in time. What we've identified through, or what the team have identified through going through the audit and that initial phase, and it links to that kind of 1 month delay at the outset, was that those accounts and the supporting records weren't up to scratch. Now, in our audit results report, which will follow in February, there will be a detailed kind of dashboard in terms of which areas we really think management can then focus on, so that Jude and his team can take that away to reflect, and there'll be kind of more detailed discussions with David, with Anastasia, around exactly where can management look to improve, look to kind of build those records up. So I think there's kind of a natural piece of, there were some individuals within the council who are heavily relied upon. It is a small finance team, and there were some individuals that were heavily relied upon for accounts production, and that does have an impact in terms of them producing those statements. I don't know, Anastasia, whether there's anything kind of further in terms of what you've seen as well.
I think Jacob has covered everything. I just want to clarify that it was not 5 areas of weakness. It's just Council's arrangements to prepare the draft financial statements and to have the supporting records and working papers ready for the audit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just like to check my understanding. So basically, those areas of weaknesses, they will be appearing in some future documentation along with any recommendations that you have. So we will be able to see a written record of them at an appropriate time, yes?
Yes, just to clarify our reporting, so by the end of November, we have a duty to issue our auditor's annual report, and that will feature some commentary around value for money, which features any weaknesses or risks of weakness. And then by the end of February, in the February committee, we'll have our audit results report, and that would feature kind of the outcomes of the audit as a whole, which will include that dashboard that I talked about in terms of kind of the readiness and support that we've received from finance through the course of audit as well.
Stephen.
I think because the outcome of the audit is a foregone conclusion, a disclaimed opinion, and nothing the council could have done to prevent that, part of me thinks this is okay, and I sympathise. The finance team is going through transition, but I think it's very important that the committee sees some sort of recovery plan for the future focused from yourself, Jude, which shows how we are going to get this right in future years, particularly as we come towards the period where it's not a foregone conclusion that it will be a disclaimed opinion. But in terms of prioritising any remaining work, I think it would be very hard for the committee to approve accounts if there is no assurance about the usable reserves and the extent to which they're backed by money in the bank, investments, current assets, etc. I think the other stuff, for me, is important, but it's relatively nice to have. But if we do not have assurance that the money that the balance sheet claims actually exists, I don't see how in all conscience this committee could approve the accounts. So that is my view as to what I'm expecting to see when the outcome of the audit is presented to us at the next meeting. And I just wondered if Jude, you would want to comment on anything you've heard from either the auditors or ourselves.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, we had, as they said, I mean, we had a staff turnover as well, and that caused some issues with, continuity, and, some of the experienced staff left just before the year end. So that was a main issue. Then I had to go on holiday as soon as I finished the accounts. That's delayed a bit on their start date. Going forward, I'm confident we can as soon as we have the recommendations, and we will work on it and to address all the issues identified to bring the accounts to a good quality for next financial year. Thank you.
Super. And just to come back, and my comments about getting assurance about the usable reserves and the actual real money, is that something you feel could be achieved?
Absolutely. I don't see any difference to that. No, I don't see it. That's as we publish it.
Councillor Velicott.
Thank you, Chair. Stephen has covered a number of the points I wanted to address. Obviously, I understand this is not going to alter the audit opinion for the forthcoming year. You mentioned that it would simply add to the work volume if it were not addressed. I think it's a minor issue in context, and in the sense that it can be easily resolved with a plan. But what extra work, if I can draw you a little bit on that, do you think needs to occur in order to get us to that position for the longer term, for future years?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because it's kind of the question that's on everyone's minds across the sector, and there's still a lot of work going on kind of more centrally around what does a rebuild programme look like. So we can't kind of sit here today and say this is what we will need to do in future years to build back that assurance, but what we will need to focus on is things such as reserves, in terms of how do we kind of go back without needing to re-audit and go over old ground. The purpose of the backstop and the reset is that we move forward. Equally, there is this kind of black hole, if you like, of where we haven't got the assurances. So it'll be thinking about how can we maximise and leverage the work we do each financial year. If I think about something like the property portfolio, can we look at the valuations in 1 year and kind of rebuild based over time, and what the council choose to value each year? So I know I'm not answering your question directly in terms of what will we need to do, but I think it's thinking about how do we rebuild when we haven't got kind of the opening position nailed. And what we potentially could have done this year is kind of agree on a lot of the closing balances for the financial year, some of which we won't have that assurance on. So that means as we go into 5-6, we don't then have the opening assurance. So we're kind of, that gap just continues, and it's that gap we want to close in future years.
So I'm through you, Chair. I'm hearing that there's a sort of concatenation of a national issue about not knowing certain things for future years, and also some local improvements we could do. Could you just sort of clarify in a short sentence what the national picture is in terms of the issue you just described?
So with the reset of local audit, all bodies will be required to have their audit completed by February next year. That will become January the year after, and I think November the year after that, so an accelerated kind of time frame to ultimately get the audit market back on track. When I was last in this room, we certainly weren't on track, and the audit was maybe kind of 18 months post the balance sheet date, and what we're trying to do and what the wider market is doing is kind of pushing those closer together so that when we complete our audit work is more timely, because it's that timely information that's really important to this committee, but also the wider public as well.
Thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
Can I ask if one of the problems is that our accounts team didn't manage to produce all the papers in the format you wanted? Have we got enough staff to do this? I mean, I know change will affect it, but if someone changes, there's obviously a gap sometimes between getting the staff replaced. So have you got enough people to do the work to get the papers in the format that the auditors require?
I'm in the process of recruiting someone, so hopefully we will have somebody who is qualified to do this work for us. So that is the aim for me now. So once that is replaced, then we should be able to address that.
So you're optimistic?
Yes, I am.
Thanks, Jude. Stephen.
Just in the interest of balance, I think the committee needs to keep in mind that one of the factors that led to disclaimed opinions and backstops is that the audit suppliers struggled with their resources. I just wondered could you comment on whether the team here is properly resourced with the level of capacity and capability that we need and expect?
From an external audit, the external audit team? Yeah, no concerns with our capacity at all.
Thank you. Members, anything further on this agenda item? We don't have a recommendation out, so right, thank you very much both. You're welcome to stay and listen to the rest, or you're welcome to leave, entirely up to you. Thank you. Brings us on to agenda item number 8, which is the internal audit plan development for 2026-27. Can I ask Rachel Ashley-Cornt, our internal auditor, to present this item?
Thank you, Chair. So this is the first item from me today. So it is just a short paper really introducing the development of the internal audit plan for 2026-27. Just to give you as a committee some insight into the process that I'll be following to develop that plan, to make sure you're reassured that it's suitably informed and that it will result in a risk-based internal audit plan that's compliant with the standards as well. So I've just set out briefly what will inform the plan and the process that I will go through. So it's quite early in the year to do this, but because we don't have another meeting for a few months, I wanted to make sure we did this in a timely manner. So I have set out briefly the process that we'll be following, which is broadly consistent with previous years and will involve looking at the risk registers, referring back to our previous coverage and other sources of assurance that are available, and looking at our audit universe in terms of other areas that we haven't looked at in recent times or may benefit from audit assurance. So I've also included a recommendation in the paper around the committee highlighting any risk areas where you require assurance as well. So what I've proposed is that if the committee has any areas to raise, I'm more than happy to receive those via email as appropriate. I've suggested by mid-January if that's convenient and if that's in agreement with the committee, and that will then feed into that process, and I'll take that forward. I can't guarantee, as I say, that anything that you raise will go straight into the plan because it does need to be risk-based and it will be risk assessed and prioritised on that basis. But it's really useful as a form of a consultation. I don't expect the committee to reel off a number of areas here and now. So that's what I'm proposing, Chair, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Before we move on, from the Chair, I'm happy to propose the recommendation as set out in 2.1 and 2.2. Do I have a seconder?
Chair, happy to second the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any further comments or questions? Stephen?
Thank you. Happy to support that process, and I will email by January. But just as an early comment, it feels like almost every day there is a news story about a cybersecurity failure, data breaches, etc. So I would expect that to feature prominently in the plan in some form.
Thank you.
Yes, with a granddaughter who's addicted to Roblox, she wasn't very happy yesterday. That was one of the websites that Amazon went down. Right, anything further? If not, are we all in agreement? Thank you. Brings us on to item 9, Internal Audit Progress Report. Can I ask Rachel Ashley-Corn to introduce this item as well, please?
Thank you, Chair. So this is our usual update on the delivery of the current year's internal audit plan. So a copy of the plan, as usual, is provided in Table 1 from page 6 of the appendix, page 66 of your pack. And that sets out for you all of the audit assignments for this year and the outcome of those which have been finalised. So since we produced this report, a number of the Q3 audits have moved forward and are now in delivery stages. And we remain on track in terms of delivery for the year, with your Q1 and Q2 audits, as you can see from the plan, all now completed and included in this report. So 3 reports have been finalised since the last committee meeting, and I have summarised these briefly for you in section 2.3 of the report from page 2 of the appendix, page 62 of your pack. So running briefly through these for the committee, and then I'll be happy to take any questions as well on the detail. The first related to IT, so similar area to just referenced, but this was looking at how we have assurance around how the council would get things back up and running in the case of an outage of systems or the network, whether that be through a cyber incident or whether that be through any other planned event. So we have given a good level of assurance for both the design of the controls and compliance in this area on the basis that there is a disaster recovery plan in place and that it was suitably accessible. It had been suitably informed by business impact assessments which were comprehensive and up to date. And we also saw supporting documentation such as supplier contact lists being readily available. And crucially, we have a disaster recovery plan, but we've also tested it as well, and we have a testing regime in place, which is really crucial because you can have a lovely document, but unless you've tested it, we don't know that it's fit for purpose. So we have made a couple of recommendations, firstly around documenting the approval process for the plans, just a low priority action just to make sure we have a formalised process around this. But also, as I say, that testing regime is so important. So we just made a recommendation around further formalising that process to ensure we have a documented approach to what went well, what could have been improved, how that will inform our plans and so on, and any actions arising from that to make sure those are suitably tracked. So overall, as I say, we've given a good level of assurance and a low organisational impact from the findings that we've reported. The next related to information requests. So this is primarily looking at how the council handles requests from members of the public, both under the Freedom of Information Act and the Environmental Information Regulations. So again, we saw there was a well-established process, particularly for freedom of information requests, which was enabling a comprehensive response, appropriate use of exemptions and exceptions which had been documented, and a timely response to those requests. What we did note, however, in contrast with the handling of the environmental information requests, is not centralised in the same way as freedom of information requests. So we do have a number of service areas who respond to these. And what we noted was that this does appear to have resulted in an under-reporting of the number of EIR requests that are being handled by the council. So in a way, we're not demonstrating the amount of activity or understating the amount of work that the council has actually done. So we have made some recommendations around standardising the processes for environmental information requests reporting, also making sure that we have an escalation process in place as well within procedures to ensure that we are able to chase up any delayed responses and ensure timely action. And the only other recommendation was around ensuring that we have a published publication scheme on the council's website, which is currently missing. I understand the previous version had a number of links that required updating, so we have recommended that that's updated and put back on the website as soon as possible to comply with the Information Commissioner's Office requirements. So as a result, we have given a good assurance for the control environment, but a moderate assurance for compliance on the basis of some of those areas I've mentioned, with a low organisational impact based on the assessment of those risks. And finally, we have an audit on asset management. So this was an audit that we performed a couple of years ago. So this was revisiting it, looking both at leased assets, those assets that we have an income from, but also assets that we hold as operational assets to ensure that we have suitable regimes around safety and servicing of equipment and so on under the relevant requirements. So as a positive, we were able to see a corporate asset management plan is in place and has been suitably approved. There were some areas that we identified that needed updating, and we've fed that back as part of the audit. At the time of the last audit, a new system had recently been invested in that was going to be used both by the finance team but also by the assets property team to consolidate all of our information around our assets and our estate. At the time of this audit, it appears that some of that work has stalled, so at the moment we're not yet consolidating all of that information onto that one system and using that as a single database. So we have recommended that the work on that be reinstated to make the best use of that software and that database, and to make sure that we have one single record of all of our asset information. We could also see that there was a maintenance programme in place with a budget associated with that, but the last surveys that had been done on properties to assess the condition and likely costs of repairs had not been completed in a number of years. So it was recognised that that cycle had not taken place in the last couple of years. We understand that was being reinstated at the time of the audit, so we've supported that and recommend that that get back into place on a regular basis. And lastly, in terms of those safety checks and compliance requirements on operational properties, we were satisfied with compliance around all of the key areas such as gas safety, passenger lifts, water safety and electrical installation condition reports. We did identify some areas where re-inspections just needed to be more timely, but those have all been taken on board and taken forward. One area we did identify as well was around clarifying responsibilities on all of our sites, including on traveller sites, for firefighting equipment and who's responsible for servicing those to ensure we are complying with our responsibilities in that area. So overall, we've given a moderate assurance opinion for the control environment subject to those areas that I've mentioned around the records and some of those controls. A good level of compliance because, as I say, the number of checks that we saw in place were compliant, and a low organisational impact at the time of the audit. So also within the report is an update on implementation of actions arising from audit. So we've had 5 actions implemented since the last committee meeting, which is summarised on page 8 of the appendix, page 68 of the pack. So 4 of those were low priority and 1 high priority action. We currently have 1 which is overdue, which relates to the action from the procurement audit, which is covered on page 65. Lastly, just to mention that on page 69 of the pack, page 9 of the appendix is the customer satisfaction information. And we have received more since here, but at this point we had only received 1 feedback form back. But I just wanted to draw the committee's attention to the fact that we have expanded this since previous years, where we just had 1 box, if the committee members recall previous versions. I've tried to expand it just to cover more areas and to align with our internal audit strategy and the new standards as well. So that will obviously continue to be populated throughout the year and brought back to you at future meetings. So I'm happy to take questions on any of the detail, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. That sounded very positive to me. Right, we have a recommendation which is noting and commenting. So from the Chair, I'm happy to propose that. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Horgan. Members, comments and questions to Rachel on this report? Councillor Horgan?
Yes, it's just firstly, an excellent report. Thank you. An update, very thorough, very readable. So I'm being ultra, picky, but on page 59, arguments and conclusions, section 7. Sorry, just above that, 3.3. 1 overdue action. It would be really helpful if you could say, see Appendix 1, page 7 or whatever, so that we know specifically which action is overdue. Now, when there's only 1, you just look on a page which says overdue, but God forbid there may be more than 1 on one occasion, and I want to make sure I know I can go straight to it, so if you could just add that level of detail in future, it would be very, very helpful so that we can jump to that particular part of the report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Wilson.
You say that under asset management that you've only got moderate assurance of the control environment. Does that mean that we don't really know exactly what our assets are, or is it? What's the reason? Is it a bit of a muddle to 2 different sets of asset records? What's the problem there?
you,
Rachel?
Chair. Yes, so as we've noted, so there are different records held. So we have the finance team's records in terms of the fixed asset register, which is on this database system. We also then have the asset register and information held by the property team. So we did identify some inconsistencies in the information that was in the council's published asset register. And again, we just wanted to see that consolidated one single version of the asset list. So we have made some recommendations around that to ensure we are fully consistent in all of our records. So that's something that officers are looking into at the moment in terms of those inconsistencies.
It's not very serious, it's just that they don't quite tie up, or is it very serious that they don't tie up and we should worry about it?
Through you, Chair. Obviously, that's something that the external auditors will also be looking at in great detail as well in terms of the fixed asset register. So on that basis, I think we'll take some assurance from their work as well, and they will also look at the valuations around the assets as well. In terms of our issues, we haven't given a high level of risk associated with the findings that we noted, but obviously we'd want to see one single consolidated, accurate and consistent record of the assets that are held.
Councillor Bellicott?
Thank you, Chair, and yeah, Rachel, nice to see you. I just want to echo Councillor Organ's comments. Fantastic report. I had a couple of questions around information governance. First of all, one of the compliance issues, although it's not directly mentioned, did you consider the data actually in the following agenda item relating to data breaches? Obviously, we happen to know that these are very minor data breaches, but is that part of what you consider?
Through you, Chair.
Please.
No, so on this case we were just looking at information requests. So previous coverage, we try to have something information governance related on the audit plan each year. So previous coverage has focused on things like data protection and data breach handling. This year, because we hadn't looked at information requests for some time, this was the focus this year, but obviously we could revisit information governance in other respects next year.
Thank you. That's really helpful to understand. The other thing I wanted to look at, obviously one of the things that you're intending to engage with this year surrounds the council's use of IT, which I think is really important and necessary to look at. I'm wondering if, as part of the auditing into information governance, you think there are better ways we could be using IT in terms of compliance, as you've mentioned in that report.
Rachel?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so I think in terms of how we're not centralising the records around EIRs, I think there's opportunities there to use IT potentially to support that process, because I think at the moment it might seem like a big task to start providing that data from each service, so they're logging all of their returns, how many they've processed, how many they've received and so on. If that could be automated through an IT system, then absolutely that's going to save a lot of time around the collation of that performance information. So ideally, yes, I think an IT solution would be helpful for that.
Thank you.
Stephen?
Thank you. On asset management, just building on what Councillor Wilson was saying, I actually think some of the findings you're putting to here are extremely serious. Overdue asbestos and fire safety inspections, regular cycle of condition surveys has not taken place. That feels extremely serious to me, given the risks to the people using those assets. And I think there needs to be some onward messaging from this committee to council, I don't know where this goes, to sort of highlight that something must be done about this. And as far as this committee's work is concerned, I think I would request some early follow-up of the recommendations that have been raised, and some reassurance that the officers responsible have taken this seriously and have rectified the deficiencies.
Agreed. Yeah. Councillor Wilson?
In what you're intending to do, you seem to have got quite a large number of items all down in quarter 3, and is that not rather ambitious? Because if you've managed to do 3 reports in quarter 1 and quarter 2, you now going to get 5 items to do in quarter 3. Are you going to manage it, or should we prioritise some of them and not the others?
Rachel?
Thank you, Chair. So I think this is one of the benefits that you have from having a shared internal audit service, because if we have one audit plan that's skewed more towards the start of the year, then we can move our resources around, so we have that flexibility. So I'm comfortable that the plan remains deliverable. It does tend to be skewed more towards the end of the year because of the financial audits that we have to do at year end, but we always manage around that. So I am satisfied. As I say, a number of the Q3 audits are now in the delivery stages, and I'm satisfied that we remain on track for delivery.
Cool. Members, anything further? If not, are we happy to accept the recommendation to note the report and the key findings? Yep, agreed. Brings us on to agenda item number 10, Information Governance Annual Report, and can I ask Maggie Camp to introduce this item, please?
Thank you, Chair. This is the annual overview of the Council's activity in relation to information governance during 2024 and 2025, and members are requested to note the report. Happy to take any questions. I do have a few questions already from the lay member who might wish to highlight some of those, but happy to take questions from the committee.
Thank you, Maggie. Again, from the Chair, I'm happy to propose the recommendation. Do I have a seconder?
Thank you, Chair. Second the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Velicott. Members, comments, questions? Stephen?
Thank you. I've had an opportunity to ask some questions before the meeting and receive answers, thank you, but there are some matters I want to bring up here. It's noted that there's been one data breach deemed serious enough to report to the ICO. As a matter of record, I think this committee needs to know what was the outcome of that referral, and have we put right whatever went wrong to lead to that particular breach. I have other questions, but shall I just pause there?
Yeah, thank you. Maggie?
Is this in paragraph 3.15? Yes, because you already have, you've asked me that question, so are you happy just to read out the answer that I received from the Data Protection Officer?
Yeah, I think it's important that the committee,
yes, yeah,
ask
of course.
that question and get
yeah,
the answer.
of course, yeah. Thank you. So, thank you, Chair. So the request was, there was a data breach that was reported to the ICO on request. And the background to this was that Democratic Services accidentally published a document containing 5 councillor signatures on our website for approximately 1 hour before the error was noticed and the document was taken down. The breach was logged and assessed by our data protection officer, who's fully trained. As with all breach assessments, there was a full report undertaken detailing what the breach was, the number of individuals affected, how they were affected, actions taken to remedy the situation, and recommendations to stop a similar breach happening again. The assessment deemed that the breach would not meet the threshold of reporting to the ICO. However, 2 of the councillors that were involved were unhappy with the decision and requested us to report a breach to the ICO. The ICO responded with advice, which was contained in an email to our data protection officer. It's quite detailed, so I won't actually go into that. If members would like that offline, I'm quite happy to share that with you. And then the data protection officer's recommendation to the Democratic Services Department was to implement a double check procedure for all documents before being published online, and this would be a double check by 2 separate members of staff. The data protection officer has since checked and confirmed that this new procedure is in place.
Thank you, Maggie.
Thank
Stephen?
you. That seems fine. I have a lot of experience with this area, so I'm actually assured by what you've had to say, and in particular that the ICO deemed it not a serious matter. Yeah.
If I could just interject that as well, I think it's important for us as a committee to know that advice that was given is now being followed.
Yeah.
Sorry, Steve.
I'd like to ask 3 more things, please. I'll do it as quickly as possible. On data protection training, I'm delighted to note a 100% completion rate for staff. I think that's a really good achievement. But concerned to know that only 2 councillors completed the training. Could we have a comment as to whether is that good enough, and what can we do to increase the amount of training given the escalating risks in this area?
Thank you. As with staff, it's actually compulsory that they undertake the training, but it's not compulsory in respect of councillors. So although we provide it, we obviously circulate it. It is accepted, however, that there are a number of councillors that may have more than one role. So they may well be a twin hatter, they may be a county councillor as well as a district, and they may well have completed data protection training elsewhere. But there is compulsory data protection and freedom of information training, of which is part of the introduction at new councillor induction.
Yeah, I mean, easy for me to say as lay member, but I would like to see some onward messaging from this committee encouraging all councillors to do this training. I think it's incredibly important. I go on to my third question, which I didn't send to Maggie in advance. It's something that's occurred to me during the meeting. There's a high volume of FOI and IERs, higher than last year. Each one takes an hour and 24 minutes on average. It's a significant resource. To what extent can we close them down if they're deemed to be vexatious, which I dare say happens? You get vexatious complainants, spurious requests. Do you have a policy that empowers officers to close down things that are deemed vexatious?
Our information officer she's very well trained, and she does have a pool of also ones that repeat themselves. You might have a similar request. She's also already given that information. She also is able to look at her procedures, and if there are vexatious ones, then obviously close them down at that point. And also, as I say, with ones that have repeat, she's answered them before, or she knows what that information is. Rather than going to the officer, she will actually close that down herself. She'll release that information in response to the request. So that saves other officer time. So I don't know if that assists you.
Yeah, that's reassuring to hear. Thank you. Yeah. And finally, please, Chair, just in general, as we're noting, the world of information governance, data protection, etc., is becoming more and more problematic and risky. Are you, as officers, satisfied that you have enough resources to manage this area in terms of capacity and capability? Yeah, if you could just comment generally. Thank you.
You did ask me this, and was it 3.21? Was that was the question?
Well, just a
a
general view on the subject.
Yeah.
Are you staffed up to deal with the growing risks of this area?
Well, I actually line manage the information officer, and I do feel that we are properly resourced and equipped. Between the presentation which is given at corporate induction to all staff and the compulsory annual data protection training, the awareness of data protection within the council is very high. My officer has a very good relationship with all staff. Quite often they will come to her and they will raise something and seek advice without prompting. They, will question her. They will query if they're bringing a new service, whether a data protection information assessment is required. They'll ask to check new software before it's implemented. Myself, if I get any contracts to look at, if there's a data protection clause in there, I will bounce it off her and say, are you happy with that? Also, yeah. As I've said in my response to you, I've actually added that breaches are very regularly reported without delay and dealt with. Even sometimes when an officer is unsure whether there is a breach or not, they will come and just double check. And I think it's a culture of communication, asking for advice, and yes, I do. In that respect, I think yes, we are well resourced and equipped. Thank you.
That's incredibly helpful to know. I think as a committee we should take some reassurance by what Maggie's had to say. Thank you.
Councillor Bellicott.
Thank you, Chair. I would completely concur with Maggie. I think our information officer is absolutely first class, and that can be seen and borne out in the reports that are provided to all members every month that detail the FOI requests that have been dealt with and a description of them. And she's always been very helpful if you're following up on any of those things. I agree with Stephen. It is concerning that we have a 100% completion rate for officers, yet a very, very low completion rate for councillors. I would suggest one thing, which is that the last email relating to data protection training was sent by the information officer in Q4 of 24-25. Because that's an online modular training, I would suggest that maybe some councillors have done that afterwards, so we may be underreporting the number who've completed that, so it might be interesting to see that. But secondly, I think more importantly, to take Stephen's point into action, I would like to request, I'll take the Chair's advice whether we need to do this formally or not, but that somebody emails around councillors again and emphasises the importance of that training. It's still live, it's still available. I think it's the Matabo Learning online modular thing. And in an area that is constantly changing, I think we need at least a wide breadth of councillors to have completed that.
Yeah, thank you. Happy to note that. I'm happy to do that. I could even do that as my capacity as monitoring officer, but I am actually council CIRO as well, so I could do it with a twin hat on and just, you know, urge them to. I find it disappointing that councillors don't take that up, because we'd like to be reassured that they've actually gone through that training.
Yeah.
Could I be included on that, please? Could I be included on that as well? Yeah, thank you.
Right, members, anything further on this report? Are we happy to note? Coupled with particularly that action. Councillor Wilson.
I've just had a message from Lorna Dupre. Says she's still at the county council meeting, so she's not going to make it at all. So she sends her apologies for not attending.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Patrick, can we make a note of that? Right, that brings us on to agenda item 11, which is the anti-fraud and corruption strategy. And Jude, can I ask you to introduce this item, please?
Thank you, Chair. The anti-fraud and corruption strategy has been reviewed and updated to reflect the new changes, mainly to include the offence of failure to prevent fraud. The other changes are listed on the page 80 of this report. And committee is asked to recommend this report to the full council. Thank you.
Thank you, Jude. Right, as Jude has just said, we are asked to recommend this to full council. Can I have a proposal and a seconder for that recommendation, please?
Happy to propose, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Horgan.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to second that proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Ellicott. Members, any further comments or questions to Jude? I found it very, very clearly written. Councillor Horgan.
Yes, just one request on page 82, at the very bottom of the page, where it's talking in Principle 6, monitoring a review of the regular review of the corporate risk register. Could we add, if it's possible, one other bullet point to actually publish it on the council website after each meeting as it changes? Thank you.
Anything further? Stephen.
Thank you. A question about on page 86, paragraph 1.7, which highlights the possible frauds that the council may incur. Earlier today I looked on the council's open data website page, which publishes the fraud over the prior year, and there are some fraud types that we have experienced which are not listed in paragraph 1.7, particularly around property fraud, unregistered businesses in particular. So I just asked you to take another look at 1.7 and check it is capturing the main areas of fraud. But my question is, having looked at that data, in 24-25 we detected 277 frauds to the value of 550,000. I'd like to know how much of that 550,000 has been recovered. But my bigger question is, the same data says that we have only 1.6 FTE of resource dealing with fraud, and it seems to me there's probably, given that we've got fraud to the value of 550k last year. There must be a business case to perhaps invest more into fraud detection, prevention, and then prosecution to sort of save the council money in the long run. And I wondered, Jude, if you could perhaps have a think about that and come back to us.
Yeah, I'm happy to take it away and bring, update you on that. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Could you email that to all members?
Yeah. Could you keep all members of the committee?
Yes, I will do.
Anybody else got anything further? I've got one. Just on page 101, this sort of goes back to the discussion we had on the previous agenda item about staff and members. You'll see the anti-money laundering policy statement. Policy applies to all employees and agency workers. I have asked the question, should that include members? And I was satisfied with the answer that I got, that this is about people who are handling cash, money. Any member who's doing that shouldn't be doing it anyway. There's no way they can be doing it. So that is why it is not in there. Right. With the possible amendment of 1.7 after Jude's had a chance to look into that, are we happy as a committee to recommend this to full council? All in favour? Unanimous. Patrick, thank you. That brings us on to the forward agenda plan. Before I ask Patrick any additional bits on that, I would just like to advise members that I've spoken to the external auditors and they're going to have our accounts ready and signed either late December, early January at the latest. So I would like to bring forward the Tuesday 2nd of February meeting to the 20th of January. And then to give sort of a, try and get a reasonable gap between meetings, which we didn't do in this year's calendar, I'd like to push back the Tuesday 17th of March meeting to the 31st of March. Right. Does anybody have anything that they wish to add to the forward agenda plan? If not, oh, sorry.
Sorry, Chair, just one comment from me. Just on the February meeting, or to be January meeting, the paper on the internal audit plan development, that's the paper that I brought today, so that won't be on that agenda. I brought it to an earlier meeting.
Yeah, that can come out.
Just to amend that, thank you.
It's fine. And that 20th date actually will fit in quite nicely with your request to have items by the 16th, because as a committee we can then just have a quick word about them as what you've received. Okay, if there's nothing further, I'll declare the meeting closed. Thank you everybody for your attendance and your contributions. Pardon me.